found among dust, cliffs and rocks on an unexplored planet millions of light years from Earth. This unknown monument left everyone from the Ishimura wondering what secrets were contained within. How old was it? What was its purpose? But even more important, who built it and where were they now? Resembling the double helical structure of cDNA, covered in various symbols of an unknown language that seemed to glow with dark energy, the artifact had both geologists, anthropologists, and archaeologists puzzled. However, among the bewildered and the clueless crew, a small segmentation, the unitologists, seemed to know exactly what they were dealing with. A marker, the first one to be discovered in over 200 years. Red of color, similar to every other red marker found, this artifact was believed by the unitologists to represent the next step on their journey to life beyond death. The red markers seemed to be an almost exact copy of the black marker, a unique monument found in the Chicxulub crater back on Earth. The black marker was believed to have crashed into the Earth 65 million years ago, brought to our planet by the very asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. It was on the basis of the discovery of this black marker within the crater that unitology was created back in 2215. However, over the following years, decades, and centuries, unitology evolved beyond religion and grew its influence to become a powerful political entity back on Earth, where the church resided within a high position of the hierarchical structure of political power, giving them exceptional pull and leverage in most places of the known galaxy. Excited and overjoyed, believing they had found the most important archaeological artifact in over 2 centuries, the unitologists rallied in worship, all of them wanting to see and experience this ethereal monument and to bask in the glory of its presence. The unitologists, a religion of devout worshippers of the marker, dedicated to the beliefs that humanity had been created by a higher power or entity and would eventually, through the marker, be reunified in heaven after death. Within days of the marker's discovery, people within the colony would experience various paranormal phenomena, like a white noise, similar to a static in the back of their head, voices of old friends, dead relatives, and sometimes a distant calling of their name, drawing them to the marker as if the relic itself was reaching out to them. The unitologists, believing this to be a sign from a higher power, felt compelled to worship the marker in its vicinity and began commuting to its location, hoping to experience a glimpse of what awaited them in the afterlife. Day by day, more and more devout people would show up at the impact crater, and within a short period of time, the numbers of the unitologists present at the marker would grow so significant that on-site security gave up on trying to disperse them. Sermons would be held, and the consensus that they were all on the verge of ascending to a higher plane of existence would slowly form within the believers of the colony. This hope of transcending to another plane of existence was only further cemented within the unitologists as the effects of the red marker would become even more severe. Among the colonists, the cases of insomnia would skyrocket. Crew members would show up for shifts sleep-deprived, worn out, and broken down from lack of rest. Not that most of them were anxious to actually fall asleep, as the nightmares that would torment them would be so traumatic, horrible, and lifelike that foregoing sleep seemed the better alternative. However, whether asleep or awake, the crew seemed unable to avoid becoming victims of vivid hallucinations. These visions would usually take form as dead relatives or friends, urging, begging, and even manipulating the victim into doing the biddings of the marker, for which most of the believers would do anything. This led to an increase in verbal conflicts, aggressive behavior, and spikes of violent outbursts among the colonists, as believers and skeptics would clash over differences in opinion. Small arguments and exchanges of words would turn to crowds of people on the verge of physical conflict, and as the mental state of several colonists would decline due to the effects of the marker, the conflicts would finally result in two violent murders, one in the psych evaluation office and one at the site of the marker itself. While most of the Unitologist worshippers saw these paranormal experiences as their creator communicating with them, preparing them for the ascension, certain that mankind would become part of something larger than life, Sergeant Newman of the planetside security team PSEC had a radically different outlook on the situation. Having been in contact with Dr. Thomas Garello, the medical chief consultant of the colony, PSEC had carefully monitored the increase of violence within the colony, the spikes of necessary psych evaluations, and the psychotic ramblings of some of the crew members that had been arrested. With no doubt in their minds, the PSEC officers immediately drew a connection from the weird behavior to the marker. Triggered by the two murders, PSEC advised Hanford Confucia, the leader of the Aegis VII colony, that the marker, which had a detrimental effect to the colony's morale and mental state, along with the entire operation and planet, should be abandoned altogether before something catastrophic happened. However, Confucia rejected the notion of abandoning Aegis VII, stating that the company had poured hundreds of billions into the operation, and to just abandon it because a couple of miners died so close to the planet crack was outrageous. Confucia also deliberately tried to downplay the severity of the effects of the marker, though Sergeant Newman and the rest of the PSEC officers were certain Confucia knew more than he let on. Confucia did, however, sarcastically remark that he would partially oblige the requests of PSEC. The marker was to be transported inside the colony, to be picked up by the Ishimura at a later time. The PSEC officers protested the decision, but Confucia, who was under strict orders from the church itself to safeguard the marker at all costs, had no interest in hearing their objections. The seasoned officers of PSEC were now certain that everything they had endured for the last week had just been the beginning. Within the crater, despite the protests from PSEC, the marker was being prepared to be excavated by a dig team and transported inside the colony. At the same time, one of the head figures for the Unitologists was holding a large sermon within the colony Union Square, preaching about the obvious signs that the tiredness, fatigue, and sleepless nights that were plaguing the colonists were all signs of the initiation of the marker, the first stages of preparing them to meet and become one with God. They all knew the marker was being transported to the colony, and they would become one with it upon its arrival. However, as the dig team attached anchors to the markers and pulled it out of the ground, a deafening screech rang out on the surface of the planet, affecting everyone within the colony. The dig team closest to the marker immediately felt the effects, collapsing to the ground in pain. But when the seemingly endless screeching tore into the eardrums of the Unitologists back in the colony, they thought it to be the voice of God. The devout gathering, a large crowd of 50 people, rallied and united through the beliefs in life after death, rose up in arms without hesitation, and collectively took their own lives. Hey there, Hazmat here. This was only part 2 of the story of Aegis VII, so make sure to stay tuned for more. As always, a big thanks goes out to the Hunters Lounge on Patreon, specifically Jacob, Derivative, The Loaf of Bread, Sir Bottoms, Corey Peterson, Tom Hengst, Dominic Gallas, Tim Wright, Jane Doe, Ghosty, Claire and Leon, Gabe Benavides, Riz TB, Stasby Istek, Nightingale Far, and Nebula. The Patreon page does not only support me as a creator, they also help me decide on future content, and you can join it for $1 a month. Link is in the description below. And thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.